A one-day remodeling experience so you can enjoy your new bathroom faster than ever before. It's a worry-free bath remodel from the most trusted brand name in the business, Jacuzzi. For a virtual or in-home appointment, call 800-826-9895. That's 800-826-9895. 800-826-9895.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show on KCAA. We'll be right back after this message from our sponsor, Teamsters 1932, a strong union with 14,000 members in the IE. Go to Teamsters1932.org for more information.
Located in the heart of San Bernardino, California, the Teamsters Local 1932 Training Center is designed to train workers for high-demand, good-paying jobs in various industries throughout the Inland Empire. If you want a pathway to a high-paying job and the respect that comes with a union contract, visit 1932trainingcenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingcenter.org. Are you looking for a good union job? The Inland Empire's 14,000 member strong Teamsters Local 1932 has opened a training center to get working people trained and placed in open positions in public service clerical work and in jobs in the logistics industry. This is a new opportunity to advance your career and raise standards across the region. Visit 1932trainingcenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingcenter.org. Are you graduating high school soon and wondering what to do next? College is one option, but why not consider the high-paying jobs made possible by union power? Labor Union Teamsters Local 1932 has opened a training center to get you into the high school to high-paying job pipeline. You'll learn all the skills needed to excel in opportunities across industries. Visit 1932trainingcenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingcenter.org.
I'm Rick Smith, host of The Rick Smith Show, inviting you to listen to my show during the noon hour every weekday right here on KCAA. My show is sponsored locally by Teamsters 1932, a strong union with 14,000 members in the IE. Our message is clear. Unions improve the lives of working people. You have a right to form and join a union, so go to Teamsters1932.org and get started now.
Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is The Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Donald Trump is going to run for president in 2024. I know, shocking, right? Surprise, surprise, surprise. Yes, our orange menace is back, and he's back with a vengeance. What's interesting, and I got to tell you, what's going to be fun to watch, and I was hoping this is what it was. The other part of me was hoping he was going to start his own maggot party, and that would be fun too, to watch him try and finish off what's left of the Republican Party. But it's going to be interesting watching the MAGA folks eat him, and it's going to be interesting to watch them turn on him because. Ahead of the big announcement today, you had one of these little planes flying, around Mar-a-Lago there with a banner taunting Trump saying, you lost again, Donald, DeSantis 2024. He's going to get, and this is the weird part, he's going to get the treatment that he never really got from the left. They aren't as good at it as the right is. They aren't as mean-spirited. They aren't as committed because, well, most people have jobs except these trolls. This is their job. These groups, these trolls. I don't know where the funding streams come from, but this is their thing. And it's going to be interesting to watch as the moneyed interests turn the troll machine on Trump. And will be interesting to see how he responds. Now, of course, our media fawning all over our Marmalade Mussolini. Cameras everywhere. And of course, flags everywhere and gold chairs. What's with the gold chairs? But watching the pieces align. Today, the Club for Growth released their polling information, which, again, the moneyed interests on the right, they're going to try and they're lining up behind DeSantis. They want to be done with Trump. They want to be done with the screaming. They want to be done with the noise. They want to be done with the chaos. They want all the bad policies. They want all of the horrible, the things that they could con Trump into doing by patting him on the head and saying, "Nice job, Donnie." They want all that, but they want less noise. They want less chaos. They want people to be lulled, especially the MAGA crowd. They want them to be lulled into a false sense of security that someone cares about them, even though they don't. Now, according to the Club for Growth, if you don't know, this is the billionaires' playground for politics. Pat Toomey was at one point, here the senator in Pennsylvania, the head of this organization. But in their polling memo, they point out that DeSantis leads Trump by 11 in Iowa, by 15 in New Hampshire, by 26 in Florida, and by 20 in Georgia. So it's kind of like, Donald, why are you doing this? We're crushing you. And, to be honest, I don't think he has much of a choice. But it's going to be interesting watching the Republicans go on the fringes, not the whole, because they're still afraid of the MAGA base. But going to be interesting to watch how this changes. Now, Mike Pompeo, his former Secretary of State, who is reportedly going to run for president, said we need more seriousness, we need less noise, we need steady hands. We need leaders that are looking forward, not staring in the rear view mirror claiming victimhood. That's the greatest line right there, because that pretty much sums up what the last 2 years of Trump has been. Someone staring in the rear view mirror, relitigating his loss in 2020, and focused on him being the victim. And his supporters say the same thing. You keep hearing the same messaging over and over and over. Mike Pence, however, he consulted with Mother, just so you know, consulted with Mother, and they have decided collectively that they're not going to let anyone make that decision, any decision for them. So that's good to know, right? Good to know. But it's going to get nasty because the Republican Party is now, there's a fault line. You've got the DeSantis crazy crowd and the Trump crazy crowd. And understand, working people, we're all screwed because none of them give a lick about any of us. The Republican Party still hates working people. That's the reality. It's just a matter of which figurehead is going to be leading the charge. Now, evidently, there was a lunch today in the Senate. Republican senators had a little powwow. Got pretty ugly, got pretty nasty. Mitch McConnell, Rick Scott, who wants to be Mitch McConnell, had a little to do, trying to point the finger at the other. And here's the reality. I think Mitch McConnell, as much as I dislike the man, I think he's brilliant. I think what he has been able to do to this country, if you're on that side, is remarkable. I mean, the destruction, the tearing apart of our democratic process, the stealing of a Supreme Court justice. I mean, you put that on your resume. That's like, that's it. That's the big you-know-what moment. That's like, boom, there it is. I stole a Supreme Court justice seat. And not only did I do that, I stole hundreds of court positions. I rigged and they're angry that they claim that it's his fault. When the reality is Trump was the main part of all this. But now he's back, baby, and all the memes are flying. Yep, I'm sure they're going to have that Rambo meme again with his head screwed on there. Here's the important part, and you go, well, why would Trump be running? Why now? Why lock yourself in? Because as everyone knows, the second you declare yourself as a candidate, there's a bunch of stuff you can't do. You can't rip people off anymore. There's no more grifting. Now, understand, and there's a lot of us, and I'm of the school of thought, that he is concerned about Fulton County, Georgia. He is concerned that he will be indicted. You know, I was expecting today, maybe right after the announcement would have been great. But I assume very soon he's going to be indicted, or we're heading down that path. And I think he thinks so too. So this potentially, in his mind, where the hamsters are running on the wheel, this is going to protect him. And I don't know how it's going to protect him other than to give him that victim card again. Because you know, no one plays the victim like Don, or Republicans, to be honest. They are the party of the martyr, after all. Now, the other part, and I didn't know this until I saw the article, that evidently when you start running for president, and this is weird to me, and I really do have to double check this on if it's just for president or if it's for every elected office. But evidently Facebook no longer fact checks anything you say because you're now a candidate. So this is one of those things where you go, he's full of it most of the time. Virtually every word out of his mouth is a lie, is something to be fact checked. And as someone running for president, shouldn't fact checking be part of this? And I know the argument, and I want to hear your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Should we be fact checking the president? Is that the role of the media? You know, are reporters the ones who are supposed to do that, and we filter this? You know, should Facebook filter anything? Should they fact check anything? Personally, I'm torn, because I want to believe that people aren't going to bold-faced lie, but I know they do often, or in this guy's case, always. But I look at the reason for running, and I keep coming back to the only thing I can think of. And if you've got another idea, I want to hear it. Is this case in Fulton County? Also today, Brian Kemp testified in the Trump probe there before an Atlanta area grand jury investigating the interference in 2020. You remember? I just need to find like 12,000 votes. Raffenparcher, just go check the cushions of the couch. Just dig up those 12,000 votes I need. That's all we need. That's all we need. Just 12,000 votes. Pull them out of, wherever. Reach around to the dark side of the moon and pop them out. Speaking of just popping them out, Kari Lake. Evidently Kari Lake's not conceding. And do you know who cares less than I do? Nobody. I hope she goes away. She's not going to. She ran one of the worst campaigns, one of the meanest campaigns, brought in some of the worst people, and surprise, you lost. And what I find really interesting about all of this is I have a bunch of people who've emailed me saying, see, Democrats cheated, because one race in Arizona went to a Republican, and Kari Lake lost. And, I know a little bit about Arizona. That in Arizona, the folks there are fiercely independent. It's a huge independent voting bloc that do split their tickets. They're not a model that they don't go, we're going to always vote for. That doesn't happen there often. So it's possible that one candidate could get your vote and another one could too. A Democrat and a Republican. I know it's hard to imagine that people do that. But in Arizona, I understand that is something that happens. Imagine that. But you knew it was coming. You knew the whining, the complaining. Red wine, baby. Red wine. Now, here's the thing. What we know is that the Trump candidates, they got crushed. When there was a competitive race, got crushed. I look at here in my state of Pennsylvania, Doug Mastriano, crushed. And rightly so. Last I heard, it was a 15-point crushing. It's probably going to get a little worse as they continue to count the votes. That is a good thing. It's a good thing. Now, favorite story of the day. I got to get to this before we go to the phones. This is my favorite story of the day. There's going to be nothing, because this is really what Trumpism is all about. This is what the MAGA movement really is. I hope you remember America's Frontline Doctors. Remember them? They have the White Coat Summit that that got Mike Pence's attention. They had the White Coat Summit, if you remember. Her name was Stella Emanuel. Stella was she believed that dream sex with demons would cause dangerous medical conditions. The demon seed. She was hysterical. But these are the doctors, the frontline doctors, who were pushing the I and the H. I'm not allowed to say the I word or the H word. Ah, hell with it. Ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. Yes, YouTube is now going to ban me for a month. But they were the ones who said, no, this is the stuff. This cures the disease. Well, turns out this group, and are you surprised? America's Frontline Doctors. Their very charismatic founder, Dr. Simone Gold, who on January 6th was in the Capitol, was sentenced to 60 days in jail, and came out to the warming arms of Louis Go-Go Gohmert as a hero. Well, it turns out the hero is falling because evidently she has been, squandering tons of the money from the America's Frontline Doctors group. And the story, wow. Wow. Can I say wow again? Because it's wow. According to the report over at Politico, over at the Daily Beast, AFLDS, America's Frontline Doctors, received at least $10 million in donations and millions more by facilitating prescriptions for the H word and the I word, hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. But Gold derailed her path to right-wing stardom when she entered the Capitol during the January 6th with John Strand, an underwear model, roughly 20 years her junior, who had become her boyfriend and an AFLDS employee. According to prosecutors, Gold stood by as a police officer was attacked by rioters, opting not to use her medical training. Now, it turns out she was spending about 50 grand a month, the boyfriend about 15 grand a month. Not only was she spending 50 grand a month on personal expenses, she was blowing about $5,600 a month on house cleaning. I guess she's a slob, because I guess her and the boyfriend are slobs. Because $5,600 a month to clean your house, that seems a bit high. But evidently she's been diverting a bunch of funds into her own extravagant lifestyle. Bought a $3.6 million house. That people are questioning why. They're in Naples, Florida. $100,000 on a single private jet trip. Yeah, squandering the money. And why? Well, because she can. Now understand, this is set up as a non-profit. Because people donate money to this. People, give to this because, hey, they're the America's Frontline Doctors. They're bringing us the I and the H and all of the quackery. And she is just milking them blind. And this is really, sadly, this is the MAGA movement. And are we surprised with someone like Trump at the head? Are we surprised with a con man at the head? I'm not. Let's quick go to the phones. Got Alice on one. Alice, how are we doing today?
We're doing good. Well, maybe she can hook up with Rick Scott because we haven't heard much more about him spending that money, from the Republican side of things. Maybe they got something going on,
No, I think he's too old for her, and he's not an underwear model.
No. I meant some sort of new grift they've got going on, cryptocurrency or something.
I do not doubt it. Look, at the end of this, look, from 2015 forward, and this as well as anyone, 2015 forward, this was nothing in Trump's mind but a way to try and have leverage over the apprentice and to make a bunch of money. He never thought he was going to win. This was a grift, and it's been that way ever since. It was about getting people into the hotels. It was about ripping people off at every opportunity. And look at all of the other people who have done this. This has been an enormous scheme, enormous fraud scheme that, the sheep are being sheared. I mean, most of them are being skinned at this point. I'm shocked they're still around.
I know. Well, the only thing, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm just waiting for him to, do whatever it is that he's going to do and, pull his I'm better than everybody else yada thing. But
yeah, it's coming.
what I'm thinking, though, is since DeSantis fired the first shot with his little banner thing, who knows? We might find out all kind of crimes. He might start leaking stuff that, Putin gave him on the Republicans, and the Republicans, on the other hand, might start leaking things on him.
Now, this is where the fun begins, and that's what I said. It's going to be interesting to see when the trolls come out against him, how that's going to play.
Oh, it's definitely... my husband said, I told my husband, I said, I am so sick and tired of hearing about Trump. That's all we've heard since 2015.
Yep.
Is Trump, 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 Trump. And my husband said, get used to it because we're going to hear it for another 4 years. And I said, 4? He said, yeah, it'll take him 2 years to get over losing. I'm like, oh, God.
I like your husband.
Yeah, he's an okay guy. Have a good evening, Rick.
Thanks so much, Alice. Good stuff as always. No, I mean, the reality is, I predicted on Inauguration Day that this would be the most corrupt administration. This is a con man. And all along the way, this is what it's been. It's been a giant con. And there are tons of these organizations that have propped up, that have made huge amounts of money off of working people. And this is, while it's comical on one vein, it's sad on another, and it's hurtful, quite frankly, that working people can be duped like this by quacks like this, who say, I'm a doctor, and buy this miracle cure, and people do, when all they're doing is they're selling snake oil. It's the same kind of crap they were selling 100 years ago that didn't solve any problems. But we still, the con is still the same. We still fall for it. And this is where, as a working person, I look at this and I go, at no point does he care about working people? Now, we can argue and we can have a discussion all day if Democrats are the answer. And in a lot of cases, they haven't been. But Trump is not. And today's announcement, okay, he's now running for president. Good. All right. Well, what are you going to do? What policies do you think he's going to talk about tomorrow? How is he going to make your life better tomorrow? Is he going to talk about infrastructure? Because he did for 4 years while he was president. In fact, I got tons of pictures of him, playing Infrastructure Week. My favorite is the one he's in a truck and he's all hunched over like he's driving. I mean, he can't drive a bicycle, let alone a semi, but there he is. He's having a high old time on the truck. Couldn't start a truck. And didn't do anything on infrastructure. Didn't do anything to rebuild our roads or our bridges. And yet there was bipartisan support, massive support. Didn't do it. Wasn't the priority. The priority was owning the libs. And I'm sorry, if that's all you have to offer, if that's what you've got to bring to the table, as a working person, that doesn't excite me. What excites me is, how are you going to make people's lives better? How are you going to make education better? How are you going to get more access to health care? Now, I was just talking to somebody yesterday who was sharing a health care nightmare. And you go, how do we fix that? How do we ensure that nobody goes through what this person went through? Went to the hospital, thought they were insured. Oops. They used to be a network. They weren't a network anymore. Had the procedure, didn't know that the anesthesiologist wasn't in network. And then started seeing these massive bills, just slamming them one after another, and nothing they could do. Because our healthcare system is that badly broken. What's he going to do on that front? Oh, that's right, nothing. Because he didn't do anything for the 4 years that he was in there. Claimed, repeal and replace. I still remember it. Still remember there was a replacement. There was a plan. And what was it? It was a stack of blank pages. Because there's not a plan. Pay or die is not a plan. I'm sorry. I know that's the Republican health care plan, but that's not a plan. And this is where, again, we as working people have to demand better. For instance, today, you want to talk about infrastructure? Today, it's 1 year ago today that President Biden signed the bipartisan infrastructure law into place, and it was barely bipartisan. I hate that they keep framing it like that. It was barely bipartisan. But there's been over $185 billion spent, nearly 7,000 projects started in 4,000 communities across all of our states. Things are happening. Things are getting done. Do we hear Biden every day tooting his horn, saying, look at me, look how much I've done? You know, if Trump had done half of this, we'd still be hearing about it. Had he done anything positive, we'd be hearing about it. All we keep hearing about, back to Pompeo, is Trump relitigating his laws. Because it's always about him. It's always about his ego. It's always about his personal legacy. It's never about you. And this is where I'm hoping working class people start to go, when is it about us? When do we get what we need? Because understand, I go back to my 8th grade government teacher. Government decides who gets what. And right now, the wealthy in corporate America have been getting well more than they want or need or even deserve, for that matter. And working people, well, they've been getting something all right. They've been getting the shaft. They've been working longer and harder, earning less and less, and their kids having less opportunities. But we can change that. And this is where, again, policy matters. The people you vote for matter. And someone like Trump, show me the policies. Bring me the policies. What are you going to do other than whine and complain? I've seen this. I've seen this movie. It was bad the first 2 times. It's not going to be bad. It's not going to be any better now. Want to hear your thoughts, though? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, our good friend Scott Paul is going to be here from the Alliance for American Manufacturing to share some thoughts on Infrastructure Day, 1 year past, and also what's going on with China. Right back after this. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2.
On this day in labor history, the year was 2014. That was the day 4 workers were killed and a 5th injured during a chemical leak at a DuPont insecticide plant near Houston, Texas. The plant used methyl mercaptan in its production of insecticides. 24,000 pounds of the deadly chemical were released through 2 valves in a poorly ventilated building on site. The U.S. Chemical Safety Board found numerous flawed safety procedures, design problems, and inadequate planning. Days earlier, liquid methyl mercaptan had solidified in piping, causing a blockage. Workers attempted to clear it by spraying the pipes with hot water. They didn't realize they had cleared the blockage, which then created a high-pressure buildup of the chemical in other piping. When 2 workers went to drain those pipes in a routine procedure, they were overcome by toxic vapors. Another 2 workers answering the subsequent distress call were also killed. DuPont blamed the workers for the release of the toxic gas, but the CSB found a number of violations. The building where the release occurred had an inadequate toxic gas detection system. Ventilation fans were not working, and the workers were not required to wear additional breathing protection for tasks they performed there. Line clearing procedures were faulty, routinely exposing workers to toxic fumes. The board also found that DuPont worked to conceal from environmental regulators as many as 4 releases of methyl mercaptan 2 days before workers were killed. The CSB asserted that design flaws prompted months of clogs before the deadly incident. More generally, they noted that the design of the building that housed the pesticide unit inherently increased the threat of exposure to workers and the public. DuPont opted to close the plant in 2016 rather than meet recommendations of federal regulators.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
America's political, corporate, and media establishments were cocksure about their prognostications that a powerful red wave was about to hit America in this month's elections. It would sweep Democrats out and push Republicans into office all across America, they exclaimed. How shocking and embarrassing, then, that their raging wave turned out to be just a little ripple. Republicans ran poorly, and many Democrats ran well. Still, the Democratic Party as a whole should have done better if its Don't Rock the Boat leadership had been gutsier, more progressive, and, yes, more democratic. Well, murmured the party's Washington hierarchy, we can't get too far ahead of the people. Really? Why not ask the people themselves? That's the virtue of the ballot initiative system. It allows grassroots groups to put issues up for a vote, rather than letting the public agenda be controlled by a clique of lobbyists, legislators, and party line followers. This year, there were 132 of these initiatives on the ballots in 37 states, and more on local ballots. And vote after vote showed that the people are way ahead of the political insiders in support of strong progressive policies. By big margins, 3 states said to hell with a Republican Supreme Court enshrining women's abortion rights in their state constitutions. South Dakota, supposedly a right-wing bastion, shoved their GOP governor and legislators aside to expand Medicaid health coverage to the state's low-income families. In bright red Nebraska, nearly 60% of voters said yes to a $15 minimum wage. A big majority in Illinois amended the state constitution to guarantee collective bargaining rights for workers. 70% of New Mexico voters made funding of early childhood education a constitutional requirement. This is Jim Hightower saying, for more information, go to ballotpedia.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as I said, a year ago this day, President Biden signed the infrastructure law into place. And yeah, we're actually going to rebuilding stuff. In fact, do you know how I know we're rebuilding stuff? Because I spend a lot of time in traffic. I was just going through my little town here. It seems like every single road is shut down all at the same time. And I don't know why. Oh, yeah, I do. President Biden signed the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which has put money into the states like Pennsylvania, almost $6 billion into this state to help rebuild our roads, our bridges, our broadband, all of our infrastructure. That's getting stuff. And here's the part that bothers me. No giant Joe Biden sign saying, I did that. I want that. I get it. Don't waste the money. Don't spend the money. Use it on roads and bridges. But I still want the sign. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on the 1-year anniversary. I've asked our good friend Scott Paul to come talk with us. Scott is the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. AmericanManufacturing.org is their website. Check that out. We'll get links on social media. Scott, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick. Great to be with you.
So a year ago on this very day, Sleepy Joe put his signature on the paper that got us roads and bridges, the biggest investment since Eisenhower on the roads and bridges front. For somebody who doesn't do much, he seems to do a lot.
Yeah, he does. And it's kind of emblematic of some of the major accomplishments of this administration. They're going to have durable impacts for people all over the country. Right, I mean that will last for generations. Even though, I don't know how many people are going to, get out and vote and say I'm an infrastructure voter. Right, it's not like the top of mind issue for a lot of folks. And a lot of folks don't even remember it got done or think it got done. But I think, to your point, Rick, the physical reminder of it, or when you're logging on from anywhere and you have fast broadband, or you can depend on clean water, or the airport terminal looks like it got an upgrade, or there's mass transit in your community, or electric buses running through smaller communities as well. That's all going to be the progress that was brought about through this infrastructure bill. And I think the great thing about this, and I'm just going to inject a little bit of politics here, is that I think very little of that probably showed up, maybe a little bit, but very little of it probably showed up at the ballot box this November. But in 2 years, there's going to be a lot more that's done. There's going to be a lot more to showcase. Both the infrastructure projects that are complete, or the factories that have been stood up as a result of all this stuff. So there's going to be an extraordinary record of accomplishment. And let's remember this too. This was a bipartisan piece of legislation. I mean, there weren't a lot of Republicans who supported it, but there were some, and there were enough who supported it to make a difference there. And so I think that it was a signature accomplishment, and again, something that is going to have a durable impact for a lot of generations in the United States of America. Yeah, brought to you by Joe Biden.
Yeah,
in a very understated way.
Yeah, my mind is now spinning in ways because originally I said, just a big giant 15-foot cardboard cutout with, like the thing they were slapping on the gas pumps. Biden did this. Saying, hey, I did this. But I'm now thinking on the broadband thing. You remember AOL and you had that noise that when you got the dial up, you have a little noise going, Joe Biden did this.
Yeah.
Kind of. I don't know. Maybe that's a bridge too far. But
5G brought to you by Joe Biden.
There
right?
you go.
Yeah, exactly.
Or just call it, Biden, 5 Biden or something.
Yeah, Biden. Yeah, why not?
No, but I mean, look, at the end of the day, we spent 4 years under the last guy talking about infrastructure.
Yeah.
And the guy who can barely get a sentence out got it for us. This is, to me, the important part. I don't care what your words are. I don't care if you can deliver the line or not. Get it done. And that's what this administration has been. They've been getting stuff done. And to me, that's all I want. How are you making our lives better?
Yeah, workhorses, not show horses. I think that's absolutely right. And in addition to infrastructure, you had the CHIPS Act for semiconductor factories. You have the clean energy manufacturing. And the reason why I'm raising this up is that, I mean, together this represents basically almost a couple $1 trillion in investment, pretty close to it. But the bigger reason I'm mentioning it is that you're going to see the fruits of this labor in 2023, in 2024. There's going to be, you're seeing tech layoffs at Meta and Twitter and all these places. But you're seeing hiring in virtually every factory in the United States of America right now. And that has a much more granular impact for people who live in a lot of those small and mid-sized towns, Rick, that I know you rolled through over the last month. I mean, they're going to see that. And when people feel better, they make smarter decisions at the voting booth as well. There's not as much scapegoating or finger pointing, and so and it's harder to inject some of those cultural issues into the mix. They can try, the other side, but it's not going to be as effective. So I think I'm excited about what lies ahead here.
Yeah, no, and look, when we went through Ohio, we had a conversation with Tim Ryan, and I think Tim Ryan ran what was a fantastic campaign. Yeah. If Ohio wasn't such a badly gerrymandered, badly rigged state, I think he would have done better. But the sad reality is, he didn't. But I think he ran the right campaign on the right issues, talking about the future of this country in ways that most Democrats and Republicans don't.
Yeah, you're right, and he's one example of a candidate who went to talk to people who were forgotten by both parties, and unfortunately had been forgotten by a lot of national Democrats. Not Joe Biden, but a lot of national Democrats before them, and that's why he made it as close as he did, right? Against extraordinary odds. And then there are great examples of other candidates. I mean, I know that you talked with Marcy Kaptur in an unfavorable district now, who appeals to working class voters, John Fetterman in Pennsylvania. But unless you reach out and you do the hard work of going out into these communities, you're not going to get it done. And I know I'm going to pull out an example from my own experience from 30 years ago. And believe me, a lot has changed in politics over the last 30 years. But I ran for the state legislature in rural Indiana as a progressive Democrat. And I knocked on a lot of doors in towns that were overwhelmingly Republican. I made a close race because of that, because I want to talk to the people. And if you don't engage and you don't reach out and you don't go to these small communities and try to talk to them about their concerns, then you don't have a shot.
Yep.
And that's why Ryan got as close as he did. That's why Fetterman won, and that's clearly one of the things that gave Biden a bit of a leg up in 2020. And so my hope is that the takeaway, at least for the Democratic Party, from this election is that, look, run on your accomplishments, but go out and talk to working class voters, go to small communities, and you're not going to win all of them over. You might not even win half of them over, but you're going to win enough of them over, that it's going to make a difference.
No, that was the point of our Working Class Heroes tour. We specifically chose more rural communities, places that had been described as used to be's. This used to be the place where we made this. This used to be the place where we made that. And we went into those places that have been abandoned by virtually everybody. And they just want to work again. They want their identity back. And as I said during the tour, they believed Trump was going to be that guy. He wasn't, and he's not going to be. He's not the future. What Biden is doing is the right thing, and it's moving us in that direction. And this to me is the important moment that we take this and we move that forward, because look, we went into some places where there used to be a factory and now the biggest employer is a drug treatment facility.
Right.
There's a serious problem in rural America, and we've got to talk to them. And the one thing that I did find out, and I think you will probably agree with this from 30 years ago, progressive policies are extraordinarily popular.
Yeah.
Progressives are not, because they've been attacked by right-wing talk radio. That's the difference here. They've demonized the politicians, but the policies are popular.
That's right. Child care tax credit, obviously drug rehabilitation, Medicare for all. I think these are things that are critically important to communities like that. In addition to the investment in our future, that investment in infrastructure or in manufacturing or in technical education. And so that is, I think you're absolutely right that if you have, if you look at the policies, it's not an extreme agenda. It's actually a very mainstream agenda. And when I see groups like the Third Way or others saying that the reason why Democrats are losing is because they've gone away too much from the middle. The evidence just doesn't support that this time. The folks who lost were in the New Democratic Coalition. Yep. The folks that won in the swing districts were the ones that had bold policies, and the folks who either scored upsets or who made it really damn close followed the same path.
People were going to make your life better. At the end of the day,
right.
People want somebody who's going to fight to make their lives better. It's that simple. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Scott Paul. Scott's the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing, AmericanManufacturing.org, the website. Check that out. We'll get links out on social media. Now, Scott, I want to change gears quick because, the big news today for me anyway is, Biden met with Xi, and there seems to be, the reporting coming out is a cooling down of temperature a bit, because yesterday on the show we talked about the potential of having to arm Taiwan and China possibly taking over Taiwan and all that kind of chaos. Am I reading too much into today? And I wanted to get your thoughts on the meeting that happened.
Look, we'll see what happens, and it's there's a long history that Biden has with Xi. I mean, they've been meeting with each other for more than a dozen years. And so there's a fair amount of familiarity there, and it's always good to reestablish that top level connection. I think that the important thing from my takeaway from all of this is that it's unsurprising that both countries said, "Look, we're going to look out for our own interests." I think one of the takeaways, though, is that there'll be a little more certainty and transparency about the approach there, so that a lot of businesses or competitors won't get caught off guard by a lot of this. But I fully anticipate this administration and this Congress to impose even more measures designed to restrict the ability of the Chinese Communist Party to bully us economically or geopolitically, and also to bolster our own efforts to build up our own capabilities here. And I really don't see us backing off from that right now. And as the trade ambassador Catherine Tai said, after the Xi Biden meeting about the tariffs that are currently on Chinese products, said, look, the underlying reason why those tariffs are there still exist in China. Nothing has changed,
Right.
and so there's no reason to remove them.
I gotta tell you, I like her a lot.
Until there's a change, and all these businesses are like, please remove the tariffs, and she's like, no, we're not. That's not something we're going to do. And so I do think that, again, having those conversations are important, and that it could, Rick, as you kind of laid out, it could avoid a shooting war. It could, avoid escalation. But I don't think that that Biden, that this administration or this Congress, or the new Congress, are going to back off tough measures designed to constrain some of the ambitions of the Chinese Communist Party that have spillover effects. Look, if a country wants to grow and prosper, that's great. Let them do that. But if they're going to do that at our expense, using kind of discriminatory policies that are going to harm jobs, then we need to stand up, push back, or they're going to harm our security too. We need to stand up, push back against that. And so I fully continue to expect the U.S. to do that.
No, this is where I come back to. I was happy to see the president took a strong stance, and also said, look, we're not going to meddle in your thing, but we're moving forward. And for us as a country, this is where I think we've got to be demanding reshoring manufacturing, start domestic production for domestic consumption. And I've been saying this for years. You've been on the show for years, and you've heard me say that 1,000 times. And I'm never going to walk away from that. I've never been a free trader. I've been a fair trader. This is one of those moments where I'm hoping that the rest of us are going, maybe we do need to control our own supply chain. Maybe we do need to have strong, robust manufacturing, and we move on that.
Yeah. And Rick, this is across the board. I mean, one of the reasons why that semiconductor legislation got done is because consumers of semiconductors happen to be big, wealthy corporations who said, look, we can't operate without these semiconductors. We need to make more of them in the United States. And so that's how that policy got done. There are a lot of other places where this is also true. And it ranges from our military. I think we've discovered that we can't resupply a lot of the weapons that we've been providing to Ukraine, or that we'd need, God forbid, if there was an escalation with respect to Taiwan.
Stop and think about this for a second. Stop and think about this for a second. We end up, and this is not funny. I mean, it's really not. But let's say something did blow up in Taiwan, and we didn't have the parts we needed to give them, the Taiwanese, the things that we promised them, because we need the parts from China. And we asked China, can you give us the parts that we need for the weapons that we need to give to the Taiwanese to fight you? Does that make any sense on any level whatsoever?
Yeah, precisely. That's exactly right. What is that is right. Yeah, that is completely logical. I mean, that's like one of those logic puzzles that you figure out in like junior high that our policymakers never figured out. But I think the biggest difference now is that we've seen this actualized, right? We've seen that our Stinger missile production or whatever, it's hard to resupply with our capabilities. We've seen others in the military raise alarm bells about this. And, this applies to stuff that we use every day, too, or that we need in the pandemic. I mean, this is not just a one-off. This is like very, very broad-based here.
So really quick, because I only got a couple more minutes left. I seem to remember there was this amendment that was supposed to not let us get into this situation. The Berry Amendment. How did we not? It's supposed to be for the military, because we're a war society. We want to make sure that our military gets what it needs, and I'm on board with that 100%. How did we go from having control of our own military and our own supply chain for our military to this? How did we allow that to happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. And we could talk. I'll summarize it in 30 seconds for you, Rick, because there's a really long answer to this. But the quick one is that there was an effort to cut costs and to use more commercially available stuff deep into the supply chain. That inevitably led to sourcing this stuff from overseas, right? At the same time, we also wanted to share some of the wealth with our allies and spread around defense production with our allies. And I'm not opposed to some of that, but I think that for really critical stuff, we got to control our own destiny here.
Yeah.
And so it all got out of hand is the problem. And we got, this is a wake-up call. And again, I think this will be an area of focus where you're going to see Democrats and Republicans agree that we need to take action, not only from a military perspective, but also from a lot of the critical technologies or the medical products that we need for our own health, economic, and national security in this country.
No, I mean, this is where you and I may disagree a little bit. I don't think on the military front, I'm sorry, ally or no ally, because there may be a day down the road where we're not allies. I just don't see that you.
That's fair. Yeah.
I don't get it. That makes no sense. But again, the brain trust decided, and I would argue the corporate brain trust, all because they could make more money, are the reason that we ended up in this situation. But it's time, and I'm glad we've got an administration right now moving us in a direction that we get away from some of that. But Scott, I appreciate the time. As always, great stuff, my friend.
Of course, Rick. It's so great to be with you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, our good friend Scott Paul. Make sure you check out their website, Alliance for AmericanManufacturing.org. Scott is the president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. We'll take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1919. That was the day that federal agents stormed the offices of the industrial workers of the world in New York City. They were looking for evidence connecting the organization to radical communists or anarchists. The ransacked office was part of the infamous Palmer raids, when Attorney General Alexander Palmer responded to the growing Red Scare hysteria by raiding the offices of leftist organizations and arresting thousands. Hundreds of immigrants to the United States were deported during the raids without legal due process. The 1917 Russian Revolution had stoked fears about a spreading communist threat. Newspaper headlines helped to drum up public panic. A week before the IWW raid, a headline on the front page of the Evening World, published in New York City, declared, "Reds in U.S. plotted revolution, deportation for all radicals." The day after the IWW raid, a Washington Post headline read, "Law to crush Reds." Writing in 1920, Attorney General Palmer warned, quote, "The chief appeal communism makes is to the worker. If they can lure the wage earner to join their own gang of thieves, if they can show him that he will be rich if he steals, so far they have succeeded in betraying him to their own criminal course." Palmer went on to describe how communists had, quote, "stirred discontent, caused irritating strikes, and infected our social ideas with the disease of their own minds and their unclean morals. Palmer's references to workers and irritating strikes demonstrate that he perceived the labor movement as part of the communist threat. Anti-communist hysteria took its toll on the most radical elements of the U.S. labor movement, especially the IWW.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Still trying to figure out how our military ended up getting, in the position that it's in, where, we end up needing critical things from other countries. And look, there were years ago I had talked about, there was the factory that made the magnets that made our smart bomb smart, that that go into the tip and for the GPS and all that. And it was I don't know all the science. It was the magnet. It was the thing that they made. And the factory was basically boxed up by the workers. They had to box up all of the machinery, and it was shipped to China and recreated in its exact form there. And I remember the story. it's one of those things that has stuck with me over the years because it was one of those Bain Capital things and all of that. But I remember having one of the workers on, and they were talking about, the indignity of having to pack up the machinery that they used to feed their families. The machinery that they made a product that they were proud of, that they helped protect the nation. And, they bought in. It was part of who they were. They internalized that product, they believed, kept us safe and, all of that stuff. Whether you believe that or not, and I don't want to get into the whole anti-war argument, but, these workers internalized that. They believed they were doing something for the good of the country, and it was also benefiting them, and they were helping support their communities and helping their families and all of that. And it was ripped away from them. And why? Well, why a lot of that stuff happened. Greed. Bain Capital would get involved in something that was, the hell with the workers. We'll shut this down in a heartbeat if we could make a nickel more. And they did. And a lot of these private equity funds and these hedge funds and these big money groups, it's about the bottom line. They don't care about people. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. And this is the problem with our politics. This is the problem with the era that we're in. And I'll tell you, I wish we could go backward and make it about the right things again. I'm a believer in competition, but competing on the right things. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get there. Maybe at some point. But it's angering to see where we are. All why? So that someone could make just a little bit more for themselves at the expense of the entire community. And I know that sounds like you're a socialist, Rick. Caring about the community over the individual. How dare you? Yeah, I do. Care about the whole. That sounds wrong. Gonna take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
We're racing forward to do our part to avert the climate hell that the UN Secretary General so passionately warned about earlier this week.
President Biden pledges U.S. leadership and funding at UN Climate Summit. U.S. and China resume formal climate negotiations. Plus,
that result means Democrats would once again control the Senate.
Democrats hold on to thin Senate majority, holding line on U.S. climate policy.
All of those thin majorities and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
And let me tell you this evening. If we was ready for the green agenda, I'll raise my hand right now, but we're not ready right now. We're not prepared. We're not ready right now. What we need to do is keep having those gas guzzling cars.
Ladies and gentlemen, Georgia's Republican U.S. Senate candidate, Herschel Walker. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, the election that continues to inform our outlook on the climate. But first, we're stuck dealing with what happened in Florida.
Yes, we are. Hurricane Nicole caused an estimated $5 to $7 billion in damages after it slammed into Florida last week as a rare November hurricane, destroying roads, bridges, and dozens of beachfront buildings. That's according to AccuWeather.
So another billion-dollar-plus storm as these things continue to pile up in recent years.
Yes, they do. In other news, as we go to air, Democrats have retained their razor-thin majority in the U.S. Senate, but control of the U.S. House is likely to narrowly go to Republicans. Congress matters because it will determine where and how quickly funding is deployed for climate and clean energy projects under President Biden's landmark climate law, the Inflation Reduction Act, and whether the U.S. will follow through on funding commitments to help developing nations adapt to the climate crisis. President Biden spoke at the United Nations Climate Summit, COP27, in Egypt on Friday, announcing that thanks to Democrats passing the inflation.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA.